That's the rule. Anyway, we're down to the youngest son of all, to Doug. And so this is his little tale today of when he was a youngster, still belonged to me. Doug was born January 30th, 1962. Mark was 8, Lori was 7, Debbie was 4, and Jenny was 3. And they all loved their little new brother. And Doug was a very calm, good baby. I think it's because Mom finally learned how to raise kids. And he was very calm and good. The only thing he did is sucked his thumb. I never had a child do that before, but Doug got into it big time. And then one day he grew a tooth. Then he grew another tooth. And one night I was undressing him for bed. And I'd always lay him on the bed and then say, "How big are you?" And they'd go, "That big." They'd throw up their hands. He was 8 months, 7 months, not very old. And so when he threw up his arms, I saw a black streak going from his thumb clear up his arm and through his chest. And I almost passed out. It scared me half to death, because I always heard that if you had a black line, it was infection. And if it got in your chest, you're probably dead. So I hurried and called my mother. And she come up and sat with the kids while I think probably Grandpa went with me. We took him to the hospital. I don't know what all they did, but they wrapped his thumb with a little splint thing and put a nasty tasting preparation on it, so he couldn't suck it anymore. And so he quit. But it did scare me.
Was he pretty mad about it?
Oh, he was an 7 or 8 month old baby.
Well, they can get mad about things too.
I don't remember. Actually, I don't remember Doug getting mad very often in his whole life. He just was a calm person. And so he was, we lived in Pocatello, and when he was 4, by then we lived out in our first house on Sorrel. When he was about 4 years old, I put him in nursery school, and then I did Amway. He went from 9 till noon, and I did my Amway business while he was in school. And he loved school. He liked the structure of it, the lessons. He did very well. I put a cute picture of him on Facebook a while back in his little business suit. He was 4. And I really wondered over the years if that influenced him to become a businessman, wear a business suit. Anyway, life was pretty uneventful till he was a young teen. I'm sorry, my throat's so bad today. It's not sore or anything. I'm just hoarse. Makes me mad.
Well, I'll tell you who's on. You can clear your voice for a minute.
Oh.
So, Jamie is on.
Hi, Jamie.
And Debbie and Carissa and Haley and Addie and Benton both are saying hi because they think you're on FaceTime.
Hi, Addie.
And Jenny is on, but she just commented. I think she'll comment on Facebook. She texted me instead, but she said, "You are on my big TV and you look beautiful." And she said, "I think Doug has started sucking his thumb again."
No doubt. Anyway, Doug went to nursery school and then on through the grades. He was a meticulous kid from the beginning. Whatever he did thoroughly and well. And then when he played little tricks on his sisters all through the years from the time he could think. Oh, I didn't tell about the electrical. When we built our house on Sorrel, he was fascinated watching. He was 3 then. He was fascinated watching the plumbers and carpenters and all that. And one day the electrician was there putting plug-ins in the garage. And the electrician, Clint Shepard was his name, asked Doug, he said, "So Doug, are you a Republican or a Democrat?" And Doug looked at him and says, "No, I'm a Mormon." And the electrician thought that was hilarious.
That is cute.
A while later, I don't know if it was months or a year or what, Doug decided to try those plug-ins. And so he put something in a plug-in and it knocked him backwards halfway across the garage. And he screamed and cried, and we got him all settled from that. And no sooner did he go out in the garage, but he tried another plug-in. I mean, if that one worked, would this one work? And that knocked him off too. So I think he gave up on the electrical work pretty early.
Okay, Grandma. Doug, Melanie, Bryce, Francis, and Sissy are on too.
Oh, hello everybody. I know this is kind of dumb, but it's fun.
No, it's good.
Anyway. Anyway, as Doug got older, he started playing tricks on his sisters. The first one I really remember was toenails. He started, when he cut his toenails, he started saving them. And he saved them and saved them. Pretty soon he had a nice little pile of toenails. And so at Christmas time, he wanted one of my little jewelry things that I had with Amway. And so I gave it to him. I didn't know what he was doing. And Christmas morning, when everybody was unwrapping their packages, Debbie unwrapped hers. What did she get from Doug? Toenails.
How old did you say he was?
I don't know.
Doug, how old were you when you did that? That's so
I don't
funny.
know. But years later, we had a family reunion, and Ben, I guess it was Ben, set it up. And he had AJ sit down at the table and act like he was trimming his toenails. And then he showed Doug watching him.
Ben, you should post that video. We just actually went through and watched all those 5-second videos
did you?
from the reunion. And that was one of them. And it's so funny.
Funny. Anyway, Doug's looking at these toenails, and finally he sidles over to AJ and says, what are you planning to do with those toenails? So that is kind of a family joke, I guess. Yeah. It was funny.
Doug said he was probably about 14.
14, okay. Some of the other things that he pulled on Debbie and Jenny, there was a night that Jenny came home from somewhere and there was nobody home. She was alone. And she walked in the living room was the recliner. And in the recliner there was a man all sprawled out in the recliner, and I don't know exactly how it was, but anyway, it scared her half to death. And then she thought, no, well, it's scary. Anyway, she either called, she couldn't remember whether she called Larry or went to his house, but Larry came over and saved her from the dummy that Doug had rigged up in the chair for her. And another thing that he pulled on both girls, well, Jenny was in on it, this was on Debbie, was the bomb. He rigged up something that had a clock and red sticks that looked like dynamite and this and that and the other, and put it all together with wires everywhere and put it under the orange chair in the bedroom. And she and Kevin, I think, were there together. I don't know if Kevin was there or not. Anyway, the phone rang and this male voice, one of Doug's friends, said, there's a bomb in your parents' bedroom under the orange chair. And Debbie said that she started up the stairs and thought, oh, it can't be. It's a trick. It can't be. And she went up to the bedroom and she looked under the chair, and there was that contraption Doug had made. And she freaked out, and Jenny was right behind her, and Jenny was in on it, and Kevin, Debbie's boyfriend at the time, was in on it. So Jenny was trying to keep a straight face, and Debbie, and she grabbed a hold of Jenny and ran down the stairs and opened the front door and ran down those stairs. And then Jenny couldn't hold it back any longer, and Debbie found out it was a trick, another trick. Another thing that Doug did, but not to the girls, and I think he was a little older then, he and his friends rigged up a purse, a lady's purse, and they tied a string on it and they laid it out by the side of East Chubbuck Road, which is heavily traveled. And cars would see it and stop, and then as they got out, they'd pull a purse away, I guess. I think that's how he did it. Anyway, this one man got out of his car and saw that it was gone or something, and he yelled at the boys and bawled them out, gave them a Scotch blessing. So I think that was the end of the purse trick. So, you know, Debbie said too that Doug did these things so at random. She wasn't always on the guard. Oh, it's just Doug again. Because there weren't that many tricks. There were several more probably over the years, but it always caught her. She always thought, oh no, we're going to die. And then, no, it's just, oh no, it might be real. So she's good at convincing herself of the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, what else have I got?
PCHU.
PCHU.
I thought maybe it was just for stabbing for something. Or is it just CHU? Oh, it might be Chubbuck Road. I bet it's,
Oh,
I
that's
bet you were
the
starting to
purse
say
trick.
Chubbuck.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's all on that
Okay.
page, isn't it?
Yeah, so Amway, Jerry
Okay.
Harmon.
The reason I wanted to bring up Amway on this is because Doug felt that Amway was a big influence on his life, and I think it was on all of our kids. In order to be a salesman and run a business where you have people that you're not paying, you have to motivate them to work. You learn positive living very quickly. And so we listened to tapes, we did all this and that. And Doug was the last child, and we couldn't really leave him home alone a lot. And so he went with us on a lot of our Amway things. And he remembers meeting the owner of the company, who ended up a billionaire from Amway, Rich DeVos, and he met him. I introduced him to him, and then later he went over and got his autograph, and he was quite impressed with them. And then the people that signed us up in Amway, Jerry and Gail Harmon. Jerry's the man. Jerry was a stockbroker before he got into Amway. So he was a businessman and really knew what he was doing and everything. And he talked to Doug at great length about his capabilities and opportunities and what he could do and everything. And so Doug kind of headed, you know, Mark was physical as long as things were moving, like a bicycle, tricycle, automobile. He was happy. But Doug was more studious and more inclined to the other, although Doug loved sports and that sort of thing too. I remember one day I was sitting at the desk on East Chubbuck Road doing Amway business paperwork, and the door opened in the middle of the afternoon or morning, and Doug walked in, and what are you doing out of school? He was in high school. And he said, I think I broke my arm. And we took him to the hospital emergency room, and sure enough, he had a broken arm.
Wow.
So he was running backwards in the gym when he fell. And I guess all of them were. I guess the coach had them all running backwards, and he fell and broke his arm. And then we had a trampoline, and Doug and his friends loved that trampoline. And he spent hours on the trampoline, which was really good for him. And then we bought a boat when he was, I don't know, junior in high school, maybe younger. And he loved to water ski. And when he got older, maybe senior or out of high school, I don't know exactly, we would let him take the boat and go out with his friends. And Jenny remembers one day they went out and they went across the lake where they always do, and there were 3 or 4 boys and her and I don't know who else. Anyway, a storm came up, and they can come up very suddenly. And American Falls is a reservoir. It's a man-made lake, and it's shallow. And so it really gets bad waves on it. And she said she was terrified all the way across, but Doug was very firm at the wheel and got him in safely, so he was the hero. And as I said, Doug was meticulous, and he was like Doyle and his dad in the way that he could fix anything that needed fixing. He would just look at it a while and fix it. And that's really a good trait for a man to have. Robert, Larry, Dale, they're all that way, but there are a lot of men that aren't, that can't fix things and won't even try. Anyway, Doug, when he got out of high school, he went to ISU. And we got him a little Volkswagen, I think. When the kids turned 18, we bought him a gift, a larger gift. Debbie got a piano or a sewing machine, which Debbie, and he got the Volkswagen, I believe. Anyway, it needed work. It was a beater. And Doug bought the book on how to fix it and took that entire motor apart, the whole, and put it back together, and it ran fine. So he had that ability. So he started working for Larry, and he had been with his dad on jobs and watched him work in the garage over the years. So it was kind of a natural thing. And Larry put him to work, and through that, Doug was able to earn all of his own college money. The only money we ever gave him for school was one time when he was at BYU, Utah. He called up and said, I can't pay my rent. I need some money. And I think we sent him $120 or something. And that was it. That's all we supported him. Anyway, before he went to BYU, he ran around with good kids. They were just good kids. But when we quit going to church way back in 67, 8, whenever it was, Doug was a 4 or 5 years old, so of course he didn't go to church. And he didn't all through his junior high school. And he had been going to ISU for a while. And one day he come over and said, sit down, Mom, I got to tell you something. And oh no. And all these scenarios went through my head, what did he do? What's going on? Is he going to be arrested or what? And he said, Mom, I want to go on a mission. And of course we were inactive at that time, and I wasn't raised in the church, and I just didn't understand. And I said, oh, Doug, you don't want to do that. That's crazy. They'll tell you where to go, when to get up, when to go to bed, what to do, what to think. You don't want to do that. That ties up 2 years of your life. Yeah, Mom, I really want to go on a mission. I said, well, okay, we'll support you on it, but I think you're crazy. Oh, how dumb can you be? Anyway, he went on his mission, and it was a wonderful thing. He came home a full-grown adult male animal, just grew up completely. He went to Tokyo, and that turned out to be a real beneficial thing, because after he was married and they had children, his company sent him to Tokyo for 3.5 years. And so they got to go back, which was fabulous. And the kids went to the American school or the international school. And it was just wonderful. And Doug, while they were there, Doug emailed us or whatever, usually we emailed, and said that he wanted us to come and see him and that he had frequent flyer miles. So he booked the trip, and it was a trip of our lives, and I'll talk more about that at a later date. But I'll show you, I've got the album out here, and Holly can maybe take a couple of pictures of that. It was the dream trip. Oh, where was I? I was in Tokyo there for a minute.
Doug's mission.
Yeah, the mission. And then he came home and went back to ISU for a year. And during that year, it's when Mark died, when Mark drowned. And he worked at AMI where I worked. And then he decided he wanted to go to BYU, Utah. And so he applied and got in and transferred down. He wrote back and said, oh, Mom, being at BYU is like college. Now I look back, ISU was like high school compared to this, so I guess it was a little harder. And he thought about going into human resources, which is the department I was in at AMI. And then he changed his mind. Human resources, there's a limited number of jobs in the United States, because each company has one human resource.
This might be the part song, Grandma. I gotta answer it.
Oh,
Keep
go
talking.
ahead. Go ahead. Anyway, where was I? I'm having a senior moment, children. Anyway, I don't know what I was talking about. Doug at BYU, I know. Oh, another thing he did that I thought was hilarious is he wrote me a letter one day. We wrote letters in those days. And he said, Mom, I made up a criteria of what I want my wife to be. And here was this list of many points of how this woman was to be. Well, the first one was she had to be a Westerner. She had to, I don't know, there was a whole list of stuff. And I said, oh, Doug, I wrote back and said, oh, Doug, when you meet the right girl, all that'll go right out of the window. You'll forget the list. Well, he met Melanie, and she met most of the criteria, but there were a few things that she didn't meet. And he didn't care. He married her anyway. She was a beautiful, wonderful girl. She's been a good mother. And while they were in Tokyo, that's what I was talking about. While they were in Tokyo, they had their 5th baby. They already had Tyler, Kirsten, Paige, McKenna. McKenna was only 3 or 4 when they went to Tokyo. Anyway, he sent an email, and with the time difference, he said, Mom, we had our little boy, and he was born at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, which gave us a good laugh, too. Anyway, Doug got out of BYU and applied for a job. They have job fairs where they come to the college and recruit people. And he got a job at EDS, which is part of Ross Perot's life, if you remember Ross Perot. Anyway, he worked there for years. I don't know how long, Doug, 25, 26 years. And then they were going to give a buyout. The company had changed hands a couple of times in those years, and it was Hewlett-Packard at the end. And so they offered a buyout to all the old-time employees, and Doug took the buyout. And so then he was unemployed for a little while, but his love of carpentry saved the day. He always loved to do the woodworking. When he was in college, I remember one of the jobs he had was to tear the whole insides out of a little house that a man wanted to remodel into apartments for housing for students. And he had Doug tear out the whole insides of that house. And that's how I saw it was torn out. But I think he had Doug put it back together too. Anyway, that skill with the carpenter tools, after he and Melanie got married, they lived here and there in apartments because the company sent him on three or 4 months to 4 different locations. And then when they bought their first house, it was in Berkeley, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. And Doug remodeled that house. So they went in at one price and sold it at another. And then they moved to Frisco, Texas, and bought another house. And he did some work in there too, every place he lived. But he also started taking on jobs like to remodel a bathroom or kitchen or something like that. And he really did that all through the years, and it helped pay for Kirsten's college. I don't know about the others. But he always loved to do it. And now they're in a beautiful home in, Prosper, Texas. And so they're going, I know he's going to end up doing some things to it. He's already building shelves in the library. So he will continue probably to do the work. So I just adore my family. Everybody does. And I'm going to have Holly take some pictures now of the pictures that hang in my office of all 5 kids, and some pictures of Doug and so on. And while she's on the phone in the other room and I can't quit because I can't turn it off, I'll tell you a little bit about Amway. Doyle and I got into Amway when we were, it was in 1966, so I was 34. He was 34. And we stayed in it for 15 years, and it was such a good company. They're a strong Christian, moral, upright company, and we loved it. And it was selling, and it was also recruiting other people to sell as distributors under our teaching and so on and so forth. So we traveled a lot with that and gave speeches in Salt Lake and here and there and the other place. And my voice, when I started at AMI, I had geared down the Amway to where it was practically nothing. And so I started at AMI, and my voice was so hoarse and awful that I went to a doctor that was a throat doctor. And he looked at it and he said, "Are you a singer?" And I said, "No, I can't carry a note." And he said, "Well, you have a singer's voice. You have polyps in your throat, and that's what makes it hoarse. And there's a little valve in there, and mine doesn't shut down entirely the way it should. So I'm cursed with this voice, and so are you, because that's what you have to listen to." Anyway, I can't read my notes. Holly has to tell me where I'm at, so I don't know. I think that was about all I wanted to tell on Doug anyway. And I'll tell you about my China painting since she's not out here yet. While I was working at AMI, my mother started, and my Aunt Lydia and Mom's sister, they started China painting. And so they wanted me to come up and do that with them. So I'd go up to Aunt Dean's every one night a week, I don't know what night, right after work, and paint with them, and they kind of were teaching me a little. And then there's a teacher in Chubbuck that they wanted me to go to, so I did. And I went to her for like 8 years. I'd go for a while, and then I'd quit, and then I'd go, then I'd quit, because of other pressures. And finally, one time, I painted a Dutch set of pictures, and I signed the big one, but not the little ones. And I went back to go to the next class, and she had my little plate that she was working on. And I only had 2 plates instead of 3. And I said, "June, that's my plate." "Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. I painted this." I didn't want to argue, but I thought to myself, if I'm good enough that you think that my plate is your plate, I have learned all I can from you. So I quit shortly after that. And then when I retired in 1997, the other painters in town had a club over in American Falls painting. And I asked one of the ladies if I could join. "Oh, we'd love to have you." "Yes, yes." Well, she called me a day or 2 later and said, "Dorothy, I'm sorry, I can't invite you to painting because we have our 10. 10 is the highest number that out-of-town artists would take when they came to Pocatello to teach a class." And I was hurt to think they didn't want me. But anyway, I said okay and painted on my own for a while. And then a lady, Betty Gullion, called me and said, "I tried to join the American Falls group and they wouldn't let me, and they suggested that you and I start a group over here." I said, "Great. My one stipulation is if we start this group, the rule is anybody that wants to learn China paint can come. No blacklist." And so she agreed, and so in 1999 I started teaching. We formed the club, and we immediately got like 14 members, and then more joined, and pretty soon the whole American Falls Club was coming to our club. We're the Porcelain Artists of Southeast Idaho, PASI, PASI. Anyway, most of them joined, and we all became dear friends. And over the years, we've lost a lot of our painters. Of course, my mother and aunt died Mom would be 110 now. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful hobby, and most of you have something I've painted, and if you don't, let me know, because I got a basement full down there that I'll have to give away or get rid of. So I've got a bunch, and I don't know what else to talk about, because Holly's in there on the phone. So shall we sit and look at each other? I'll turn off my phone. Well, that might lose it. Oh dear, what'll I do? I don't know if I told you much about Doyle's life. I don't know if I have or not. He was born in Robin, Idaho, in his grandmother's living room. And his mom, Virgie, and his dad, Ray Chatterton, had a little farm over in Virginia, which is between Malad and it's in that area, by Lava. Oh, here she comes.
Sorry,
I'm saved
Grandma.
by the bell.
I should have forwarded my phone to my parents, so
Oh, well, that's all
I
right.
didn't have to answer it.
Bye, everybody. I hope you didn't get too bored.
Okay, do you want to read through, do you want me to tell you what some of
Yeah.
the comments are? Okay, my mom said it was a sewing machine
Oh,
that we
okay.
bought, and Jenny said, hey, I never got a big gift when I turned 18 with a bunch of really mean faces.
She got her teeth braces.
Jenny, braces. Okay, Doug said that the VW was a car I bought when I became a senior because I was tired of making payments on the Plymouth Arrow. Paid $250 for it, a total beater. I can't read the rest of that comment. Let's see. My mom said, was your big gift to help you going to BYU Hawaii?
Was what?
I don't know. I should open these comments up on.
Oh,
They don't show all the way up there, so let me open them up on.
we're
here.
not still on the.
Yeah, we are.
I thought we were off. Okay, Doug, you bought the car. Okay, Debbie, it was a sewing machine. After all, I'm 84, like I said earlier.
Okay, let's see. He said the car was born the same year he was, so it was 17 years old. So, Jenny said no. I don't know. I missed some of it. So she said no. I came back home and paid Dad back $40 a month.
On
So,
her teeth.
I don't know if that was her
Oh,
teeth
I-
or something you talked about earlier.
On her braces, probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, Jenny. Did we really cheat you out of your 18-year-old gift?
And Jamie said that she saw a bumper sticker for Amway the other day and it reminded you of her. And that it's 75 degrees in California.
We had
So-
11 below when I woke up yesterday morning. It was 11 below.
Yeah.
It's really cold
It is
here
cold.
and deep, and we keep getting more snow. And now we're going to get rain, and then it'll freeze, and it'll be slick. And I'm not driving in the snow at all.
It's just
So
scary.
I had a lady pick me up for church, and I'm not able to drive.
Yeah. Well, it is bad out there. Okay, well, anything else?
Bye, everybody.